It's 3:47 a.m., 400 feet beneath the North Atlantic, and inside the USS Los Angeles, a steel kitchen the size of a small apartment bathroom hums with controlled chaos. Chief Kevin "Rusty" Staub moves between two ovens, a single fryer, and a griddle that's been running non-stop for the past 18 hours. Around him, 6 culinary specialists slice, season, and serve in a space so cramped they have to coordinate every turn like dancers in a deadly ballet. This isn't just any kitchen. This galley crew runs a 24-hour restaurant in the space of an average-sized kitchen for 135 submariners who haven't seen sunlight in 2 months. The stakes couldn't be higher. 99% of the morale is here. Staub gestures around the main mess. This is it. In a world where sailors sleep 3 to a stack, share 2 showers among 100 men, and turn sideways just to pass each other in the corridors, food becomes the one comfort that can make or break an entire deployment. Unlike surface ships that can resupply weekly, submarines carry everything they need for 3 months at sea. Food becomes the limiting factor for patrol duration. Not nuclear fuel, not oxygen generation, but the simple human need for a hot meal. These aren't ordinary cooks. They're culinary specialist submarines, members of one of the Navy's most demanding and specialized ratings. While nuclear-powered submarines can theoretically stay submerged for years, reality is far different. Virginia submarines have about 135 crew members who are usually served 4 meals a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the infamous mid-rats for the midnight watch. Every single meal must be planned, prepared, and served in conditions that would challenge the world's finest chefs. No fresh air, constant motion, and zero room for error. This is the story of how the U.S. Navy transforms ordinary recruits into underwater culinary specialists capable of feeding an entire submarine crew, and why their success determines whether a nuclear submarine returns home as heroes or comes back broken. Step into the galley of a modern nuclear submarine, and you'll immediately understand why submarine cooks are considered among the Navy's elite specialists. The USS Los Angeles galley measures just 10 feet by 12 feet, smaller than most home kitchens, yet this cramped steel box must function as a round-the-clock restaurant serving 135 hungry submariners. But here's the catch. This kitchen doesn't just pitch and roll with ocean swells like surface ships. It operates in 3 dimensions, diving and surfacing while maintaining a precise angle that can send unsecured pots sliding across counters and scalding oil splashing onto unwary cooks. The numbers are staggering. Each submarine carries 18,000 pounds of frozen meat and 20,000 pounds of canned goods, enough food to last 3 months at sea without a single resupply. Unlike aircraft carriers that receive weekly food deliveries, submarines are entirely self-sufficient once they submerge. Every cubic inch of available space becomes a pantry. Sailors literally walk on cases of canned goods during the first weeks of patrol, the narrow corridors lined one case high with number 10 cans topped with cardboard or plywood. As one supply officer explained, you more or less eat your way down to the deck plates. But it's not just 3 meals a day. Submarine cooks prepare 4 full meals: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the notorious mid-rats, midnight rations for sailors pulling the night watch. Add to that the constant night baking, fresh bread production, and special occasion meals, and the galley operates virtually non-stop. The work is so demanding that even with careful planning, supply officers warn about the dreaded okra problem, when poor food rotation leaves you with nothing but unpalatable vegetables for days. The human element makes this challenge even more complex. Unlike surface ships where sailors can grab fast food in port or eat at different times, submarine crews depend entirely on the galley for sustenance and morale. These men live in windowless steel tubes, breathing recycled air, sleeping in bunks barely longer than their bodies. Food becomes their primary comfort, their taste of home, their reason to gather and socialize in the cramped mess deck. Chief Kevin "Rusty" Staub, leading mess specialist aboard the Los Angeles, puts it simply, 99% of the morale is here. In his world, there's no margin for error. A burned breakfast doesn't just mean hungry sailors, it can affect the psychological well-being of an entire crew operating one of the world's most complex and dangerous weapons systems. When you're 400 feet underwater for months at a time, the difference between good food and bad food isn't just about taste, it's about mission success. The path to becoming a culinary specialist submarine begins long before any recruit steps foot on a nuclear submarine. The Navy's selection process is deliberately demanding. These aren't just cooks, they're specialists trained to operate in one of the world's most extreme environments. To even qualify for submarine duty, candidates must achieve specific scores on the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. A combined score of 200 on arithmetic reasoning, math knowledge, electronics information, and general science, or 200 on verbal expression, arithmetic reasoning, math knowledge, and mechanical comprehension. The Navy isn't looking for just anyone who can flip burgers. They need technically proficient individuals who can troubleshoot equipment, manage complex inventory systems, and work under intense pressure. After completing basic training at Recruit Training Command Great Lakes, aspiring submarine cooks report to the Joint Culinary Center of Excellence at Fort Lee, Virginia, for their 5-week Class A technical school. This isn't your typical culinary school. Students learn military food preparation on an industrial scale, mastering nutrition science, food safety protocols, and dining service management. They study menu planning for weeks at sea, inventory management in confined spaces, and the psychology of feeding crews under stress. Every technique is taught with submarine operations in mind. How to cook when your kitchen tilts at a 45-degree angle, how to prevent cross-contamination in recycled air, how to maintain sanitation when fresh water is precious. But the real challenge begins after A school. Culinary specialist submarine candidates face an additional 9 weeks at Basic Enlisted Submarine School in Groton, Connecticut, training that surface fleet cooks never experience. Here, they learn submarine systems, emergency procedures, damage control, and the unique culture of the underwater Navy. They study the submarine's nuclear reactor basics, atmosphere control systems, and water purification processes. They must understand how their galley integrates with every other system on the boat, because in a submarine emergency, every sailor, including cooks, becomes a damage control specialist. The Navy takes this training so seriously that several years ago, Connecticut invested in a full-size replica of a Virginia-class galley at the submarine base in Groton. This $40 million training facility allows future submarine cooks to practice in exact conditions they'll face at sea: cramped quarters, specialized equipment, and the constant coordination required to feed a crew without interfering with submarine operations. By graduation, these specialists aren't just trained cooks. They're submarine-qualified culinary professionals who understand food science, nutrition, inventory management, food safety, and submarine systems. They've learned to think three-dimensionally about storage, to coordinate meals around watch schedules, and to maintain morale through food when crews face months of isolation beneath the waves. The reality of submarine cooking becomes clear at 0500 hours, when the first culinary specialist begins prep work in near-total darkness. The galley aboard a nuclear submarine operates with equipment that would seem laughably inadequate to any civilian chef: 2 ovens, a single fryer, 2 boiler pots, and 1 griddle. That's it. With this minimal setup, the galley crew must produce 4 complete meals daily for 135 people, plus fresh baked bread, midnight snacks, and special occasion feasts. The menu rotation reveals the incredible complexity of their operation. Saturday nights mean pizza and buffalo wings, a submarine tradition that requires hand-rolling dozens of pizza crusts in a space where 3 people can barely stand shoulder to shoulder. Sundays bring prime rib or steak with shrimp, requiring precise timing to serve 135 perfectly cooked steaks from equipment designed for a small family kitchen. Italian night features fresh-baked French bread and multiple pasta dishes: lasagna, manicotti, spaghetti with meat or clam sauce, all prepared simultaneously in those cramped quarters. But the most popular meals are Mexican nights, particularly the USS Los Angeles specialty, enchiladas. Preparing enchiladas for 135 people means rolling hundreds of corn tortillas by hand, managing multiple sauce batches, and coordinating cheese, meat, and vegetable preparations while the submarine pitches through ocean swells. The crew also enjoys crab legs, Chinese 5-spice chicken, French onion soup, and a daily salad bar, luxuries that seem impossible given the space constraints. Organization becomes an art form. The freezer, roughly the same size as the entire galley, is packed floor to ceiling and meticulously keyed to the daily menus so that food needed for the first meals are immediately inside the freezer door. There's no room for error. Rooting around for a missing chuck roast simply isn't possible when every inch is calculated and coordinated. Cooks develop an almost supernatural ability to locate specific ingredients in the maze of frozen provisions. The pressure is relentless. According to kitchen staff, the submarine's crew are very vocal about not liking the food, adding extra psychological pressure to an already demanding job. These sailors can't grab takeout or cook for themselves. They're entirely dependent on the galley crew's skill, creativity, and endurance. One poorly executed meal can affect crew morale for days, while a perfectly prepared Sunday prime rib dinner can lift spirits during the darkest moments of a 3-month patrol. The work never stops. Even after serving dinner to 135 people, the night shift begins preparing midnight rations while simultaneously starting prep work for the next day's breakfast. Bread must be baked fresh, desserts prepared, and the endless cycle of meal planning, preparation, cooking, and cleanup continues 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for months at a time. All in a kitchen smaller than most home bathrooms, hundreds of feet beneath the ocean surface. To truly appreciate the precision required of submarine cooks, consider the dramatic contrast with their aircraft carrier counterparts. When the USS Harry S. Truman operates in combat zones, its culinary team faces the monumental task of feeding about 5,500 people with 17,300 meals daily. The scale is almost incomprehensible. 1,600 pounds of chicken, 160 gallons of milk, 30 cases of cereal, and 350 pounds of lettuce consumed every single day. Aircraft carriers deploy 114 sailors as cooks, working across 7 separate galleys, each equipped with industrial-grade equipment that would seem luxurious to submarine cooks. They have giant mixers that can handle 60 pounds of dough, basins for steaming massive bags of vegetables, and pans capable of holding nearly 80 gallons of food. Their supply ships deliver between 500,000 to 1 million pounds of food every week or two, with costs ranging from $45,000 to $65,000 daily just for ingredients. The contrast is stark. While aircraft carrier cooks work in teams of 15 to 20 per galley with room to move and specialized equipment for every task, submarine cooks operate with just 6 to 8 specialists total, working in that cramped 10 by 12 foot space with basic equipment. Aircraft carriers can accommodate dietary restrictions easily, maintain separate dining areas for officers and enlisted, and even employ personal chefs for commanding officers who prepare French-influenced cuisine like confit duck and individual pastry desserts. But here's what makes submarine cooking even more challenging. Aircraft carriers can resupply weekly and maintain multiple backup systems. If one galley fails, 6 others continue operating. If food runs low, supply ships arrive within days. Submarine cooks have no such luxury. Their 18,000 pounds of frozen meat and 20,000 pounds of canned goods represent everything available for 3 months. There are no second chances, no emergency resupply missions, no backup galleys. The difference extends to crew expectations as well. Aircraft carrier sailors can eat at different times throughout the day, grab snacks from ship stores, or even occasionally eat special meals in the officer's wardroom. Submarine crews eat together in shifts, sharing the same cramped mess deck, depending entirely on the galley crew's ability to transform military rations into meals that maintain morale and remind them of home. Yet both operations share one crucial element: the recognition that food service directly impacts mission success. Whether feeding 135 submariners or 5,500 carrier personnel, Navy cooks understand their role extends far beyond nutrition. They're morale specialists, comfort providers, and often the difference between a successful deployment and a failed one. The scale may differ dramatically, but the responsibility remains the same: keeping America's sailors fed, happy, and ready for whatever challenges await in the depths of the ocean or on its surface. When the USS Los Angeles surfaces after a 3-month patrol, the first thing crew members rush to find isn't their families or solid ground, it's a hamburger and a beer. After months of recycled air and artificial light, after sleeping in bunks stacked 3 high and sharing 2 showers among 100 men, What they remember most isn't the cramped quarters or the dangerous missions. They remember the food. They remember Saturday night pizza made from scratch in a kitchen the size of a closet. They remember Sunday prime rib that somehow tasted better than anything they could get on shore. They remember the way Chief Staub could transform military rations into enchiladas that reminded them of home. This is the true measure of submarine culinary specialists, not the technical precision required to operate in impossible conditions, but the human connection they maintain through food. In a world where privacy doesn't exist and personal space is measured in inches, the galley becomes the heart of the submarine community. It's where sailors gather between watches, where they celebrate birthdays with hand-decorated cakes, where they mark the halfway point of deployment with lobster and steak dinners that feel like miracles in the depths of the ocean. The statistics tell one story. Approximately 7,500 culinary specialists feed over 300,000 U.S. Navy sailors worldwide, operating galleys from the Arctic Circle to the South China Sea. But the human story runs deeper. These specialists represent a tradition that stretches back to 1794, when the original cook rating was established with the passage of an act to provide a naval armament. The rating has evolved through ship's cook, commissary man, mess management specialist, and finally to today's culinary specialist. But the mission remains unchanged, keeping America's sailors fed and ready for duty. The Navy recognizes this critical role through the annual NAY Award, which honors the ship or submarine with the most outstanding galley operations. But for submarine cooks, the real recognition comes in quieter moments, when a sailor approaches the serving line and asks for seconds, when the mess deck fills with laughter during a particularly successful themed dinner, when crew members write home about the incredible food they're eating hundreds of feet underwater. These culinary specialists master skills that would challenge professional chefs in the world's finest restaurants. They coordinate complex menus while managing limited storage, prepare gourmet meals with basic equipment, maintain food safety standards in recycled air environments, and do it all while their workplace pitches and rolls through 3 dimensions. They understand nutrition science and inventory management, submarine systems, and emergency procedures. They can transform a 135-person dining room into a training facility between meals, then restore it to serve fresh-baked bread and coffee to the midnight watch. But perhaps most importantly, they understand the psychology of isolation. They know that when sailors have been underwater for 2 months without seeing the sun, a perfectly prepared steak dinner isn't just food, it's hope. When homesickness threatens to overwhelm young sailors thousands of miles from their families, familiar comfort foods become a lifeline to sanity. When tensions run high in cramped quarters during dangerous missions, shared meals in the mess deck provide the social connection that keeps crews functioning as a team. The next time you see a nuclear submarine pulling into port, its hull gleaming black against the harbor waters, remember the culinary specialists deep within its steel belly. They've spent months in conditions that would break most people, working 18-hour days in spaces barely large enough to turn around, creating meals that somehow taste like home. They've mastered one of the most demanding culinary challenges on Earth, not just feeding people, but nourishing their souls in the depths of the ocean. In a world of advanced technology and sophisticated weapon systems, they prove that sometimes the most important mission is simply making sure everyone has a good meal and remembers what they're fighting for.